Another edition of the IndyCar Show, Burnout Sports and burnoutsports.com as IndyCar heads for round 3 on the streets of Long Beach in Southern California. The series continues to gain momentum. Alexander Rossi was at the White House for the Easter holiday over the weekend. The 100 Days Out premiered the other night down in Southern California as well. Some Hollywood stars will be at the race coming up this weekend. We are ready for round number 3 right here, Burnout Sports, the IndyCar Show. And look, Long Beach is a difficult racetrack. We know that, and there's a lot that we're going to dive into as far as what to expect for this weekend. But the name to me that just keeps coming up is really a team name, and that is Arrow McLaren. And this is a team that has had momentum so far this season. Obviously, Pato Award with back-to-back runner-up finishes. Probably should have won on the streets of St. Pete to open up the season. The Chevy engine, I guess malfunction if you want to call it, cost him the victory with 2 laps to go down at St. Pete. Was dominant at Texas 2 weeks ago. Had the entire field at least 1 lap down besides Joseph Newgarden, who was running in second. And then the caution flags did not fall the way of Pato Award, as we know. He comes home with that second-place finish. We were robbed of a mid to early 2000s type of finish at the Texas Motor Speedway due to the yellow. But Pato Award, number 1 on the Burnout Sports Power Rankings. We will get to that coming up. You go back, Colton Herta. He is great at Long Beach. We know that. But Andretti Autosport, on top of the world Saturday afternoon at St. Petersburg, Florida, as, qualifying on the pole was Grosjean. And then you had, I think 4 drivers inside of that top 10 with, obviously, Kyle Kirkwood, who had a great run as well. But Colton Herta needs a good drive here. He needs a good race. He was not a factor at Texas. Fell off at St. Pete, as we know. That chaotic start at St. Pete took out a lot of drivers, and then Colton just really wasn't in the mix throughout the day. It's a lot. Joseph Newgarden has been so good at Long Beach. He's been so good at every track, if you want to really break it down. The winner of the Texas race a few weeks ago. Newgarden is who everybody's gunning for right now, but there's so many. From top to bottom, the competition in IndyCar right now is some of the best that we have ever seen. Alexander Rossi has won there, returns to what is basically his home track. Felix Rosenqvist, we know, is hungry, qualified on the pole at Texas, really didn't turn that into anything that he's going to write home about when it comes to finishing position. But Arrow McLaren is a team that I'm looking at this weekend. You've got Pato Award with back-to-back runner-up finishes leading the point standings. Alexander Rossi is hungry, was 4th in the season opener down at St. Petersburg. And then again, as we mentioned, Felix Rosenqvist really needs some good runs here. And here's what I'll say about Felix. I like Felix a great deal, but we start talking about who's going to be a free agent next year and who's going to go where. We know that the 10-car Chip Ganassi Racing is going to be open. Would Felix go back to that as a reunion? I think Felix would. I think Chip is looking elsewhere. We'll get to that with the driver who's inside of our top 10 in the power rankings after Texas on burnoutsports.com. But this is a team that I think Pato Award is right there. He is the next generation of incredible talent that's going to be here for the next 10, 12 years. Chip Ganassi Racing, let's shift over to them a little bit. Alex Palou is pretty good here. Scott Dixon has relatively been quiet. He had a bad qualifying effort at St. Pete still, turned it into what Scott Dixon does, turns an 8th-place car into a 5th-place car, or a 5th-place car into a podium run. And it was a podium run for him down at St. Petersburg. And then Texas was right there inside of that top 8 most of the day. Didn't really threat for the win. But again, it's just Scott Dixon being Scott Dixon. And you think about the previous champions of the series, Joseph Newgarden, Scott Dixon, Will Power last year. It wasn't as much about wins as it was consistency. And now that there's no double points in the Indianapolis 500, consistency is going to be even more key. We know we saw Will Power win last year's championship with just 1 victory, but it was chipping away at top 5s, top 3s throughout the season that won Will Power the championship last year. Elsewhere at Team Penske, Will Power, as just mentioned, he's going to need to get his season going a little bit. It hasn't been the greatest of starts. He has his new contract that we just learned about. He'll be signed through the 2024 season, so another 2-year extension for Will Power to stay in that 12 car with backing from Verizon. And then Scott McLaughlin. Scotty Mac qualified in the back, or middle of the field, I'd say, at St. Pete. Didn't really have the drive that he wanted. Was going for it. Ended with disappointment in the tire barrier with Romain Grosjean. And then, we thought he would be there at Texas, and he just didn't really have, what we had for what we thought last year. McLaughlin in his second run at Texas, finishing second on the last lap at Joseph Newgarden. So Long Beach this weekend, it is a demanding race course. It is tough. Any street course is obviously tough. I would point to, some of the other ones as being tougher because of the winters, but you just never know with Long Beach, California, and where we are. But I can't wait for the weekend race, the third race of the year. We're starting to build that momentum up towards the month of May. And a guy that we haven't talked about yet who's been really good is David Malukas. Last year as a rookie, should have been Rookie of the Year at Indianapolis 500. Had some great drives on road courses throughout the summer. And then his run to second place was excellent at St. Louis last year when it went dark after the rain delay, obviously. So David Malukas, we're going to talk about him throughout the season. And he's one of those guys that is gaining the momentum of who's going to be in that 10 car next year. Alex Palou, as we know, going to McLaren. That's going to be a seat that is coveted. That 10 car at Chip Ganassi Racing, we know can win races. We know can win championships. Alex Palou won the season finale last year, despite all the craziness and the rumor mill that was surrounding him throughout last summer. With is he going to stay at the 10? What's going to happen? Is his contract going to be broken? We've obviously learned since then that him and Chip have gotten along throughout that process. There was just some other guys, some external voices that kind of got in the way, but. That's a championship caliber ride, as we know. Is David Malukas ready for that? Is there an opportunity for his dad, as we know, HMD, to maybe partner with Ganassi while still continuing to fill that 18 and the 51 car? The 51 this year, obviously, was Stingray Robb. We're already getting into the rumor mill cycle of what can happen for 2024, and we're only 2 races deep into this 2023 season. Again, Long Beach, going to be great. Marcus Ericsson, we know last year the meme that was heard around the IndyCar paddock of him kind of sitting there depressed after things didn't really go his way. So we're going to see what happens this weekend. I can't wait for Long Beach. Some predictions. Look, it seems like the top of the top, Chip Ganassi Racing, Team Penske is right there. McLaren is a very close second, probably in that mix as well as your A-tier type of teams right now, with what Pavel Ward has been able to do in the opening 2 rounds of the 2023 season. And then it's a little bit of a gap, and if you're talking team-wise, it's a bigger gap. But you have Juncos Hollinger Racing, who has been the story of success. They used to be the little team that could, and Kyle Kaiser bumps his way in at Indianapolis 500. Now this team is impressive. Canapino has been incredibly... And I can't express this enough how impressive he has been. The street course finishing 12th at St. Pete, then obviously the run that he had at Texas for the first time on an oval, another top 12 finish. And then Colin Ilott, I believe, with a 5th and an 8th place finish to his record so far this season. I can't wait to see. Ilott's another guy that's going to be in the running for maybe a ride at Ray Hall. Well, you will see. Maybe that 10 car is where Colin Ilott ends up in the 2024 season. But I've been super impressed of what we've seen so far. Some other teams that really need good runs this weekend at Long Beach. You know exactly where I'm going. I've got 2 for you. That's Ed Carpenter Racing, and that is Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing. Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing, Christian Lundgaard has been decent. He has a lot of talent. I'm a firm believer that there's a chance that he wins his first race this season. And in fact, Lundgaard and I have a little side bet going on that he thought his first win would be St. Pete. That didn't happen, although he did finish inside of that top 10. I think his first win's going to be at the road course race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway coming up here in a few weeks in early May. So the bet between Lundgaard and I that we made in the offseason was if he won St. Pete, the night would be on me. If he wins the IndyCar Grand Prix, the night will be on him. So if that happens and he gets that beautiful, my favorite livery, the 45 Hy-V Honda livery, if he can get that in the victory circle at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we're all going out. We'll take the of legal age Indy boys, and we'll all go out and have a blast throughout Indianapolis to celebrate that. But they've got to get better. I mean, Graham Rahal keeps saying, he said it after Texas. Obviously wasn't the finish he wanted, getting taken out in a scary accident. Devlin went low, and then I think when Devlin went low to pit and he hit from the banking of the track to the the pit entrance. He just lost it up the track. Graham hits him, goes through the air. Jack Harvey, obviously the bad injury, was a little bit out of it after that St. Petersburg race. We know that he recovered to run at Texas, but we just haven't really heard much from Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing this year, and this is the great shot to do it. Is coming up this weekend. And then Ed Carpenter Racing. Look, Renus had 2 top 5s last year. Connor had 1. Something's going on at Ed Carpenter Racing. I can't put my finger on it quite yet, but I know the talent that Renus has, and you want to call it a learning curve. I mean, this is Renus's 4th season. You know where you're going. You know what's going on here. Connor, very popular driver in the paddock, as we know. Did not have the St. Petersburg race that he wanted and really wasn't there. He was probably the 3rd of the 3 at Ed Carpenter Racing at Texas. Ed Carpenter had a pretty good run. Ed flirted with the top 10 there, a little bit of nice get right type of situation for Ed down at Texas before the test coming up at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the Oval coming up next Thursday and Friday. I'll be out there. We'll have you covered here on Burnout Sports. So make sure you follow at Burnout Sports on Twitter and TikTok too, but especially on Twitter because I'm locked out of my personal Twitter account at Tony D Indy. I don't know why. I got a weird notification that somebody had logged in. So get right weekend this weekend. We need to see some pace. We need to see some decent results from Ed Carpenter Racing and Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing coming up this weekend on the streets of Long Beach. And coming up in Birmingham will be good for Graham. That's a really good racetrack for him as well. All right, predictions, like I said, Joseph is going to be there. Pato's going to be there. A dark horse, and I said this in St. Pete, could be Kyle Kirkwood. He adapts well to the street courses. He was fast. I was in line. We were in line to get waters at the race at St. Pete, and a guy in front of me had a Kyle Kirkwood shirt on. And we were just kind of started talking. And he goes, "What do you think about Kyle Kirkwood?" I said, "I like Kyle. He's been good to me. I think he's got a lot of talent. He's got to keep it off the wall." And the dude orders like 4 beers, and over the PA we hear that Kyle Kirkwood had just crashed. And he goes, "You called it." And I said, "Well, what makes you a Kirkwood fan?" And he goes, "That's my brother." So it was Kyle Kirkwood's brother. And I'm always going to be honest, give you my opinion. That's what we do around here. But I mean, he knew it. Like, you got to keep it off the wall, and that's something that Kirkwood hasn't been able to do. I'm going to call it right now. Alex Palou your winner coming up on Sunday. I don't know why I have a good feeling about Alex Palou on the streets of Long Beach. I think we're going to see 3 different winners to start the season. It's going to come down between Ganassi, Penske, and then probably Rossi from McLaren and Pato O'Ward from McLaren. But I think Alex Palou is going to be that guy that we're talking about raising the trophy, the top step of the podium coming up this weekend at Long Beach. Again, that's a 3 Eastern race. We will have a Burnout Bets show on Burnout Bets Twitter account with Mike. We will do a Twitter Spaces before the race, as we always do. I hope you listened at Texas because we won you some money between Mike and I. We covered the top 2 between Award and Newgarden. We had some other great bets as well that won you some money. I think we hit all of our matchups except for maybe one. I think the only thing we didn't hit was we did take a flyer on Devlin in that group of 4. And then I think we did take Sato. But overall, I got a nice text from Mike that said that's the best weekend that we've had so far in covering this. I had Ericsson at 9-1 to win down in St. Pete, and that happened. So, Mike and I can pretty much narrow these races down to 3 drivers that are going to win, and so far we're 2 for 2 to start the season. So can't wait to see how we perform coming up in Long Beach. All right, at Burnout Sports Twitter account, Facebook, check us out. Don't forget to follow the Indy Boys as well. Plenty of content coming up. But let's talk about the 107th running of the Indianapolis 500 and the 34th entry that we are going to see. Now, I kind of planted the flag on this was coming. It was going to be a 34th entry, and it was going to be a Chevy engine. That was really what I was told that I could put out there. So I'll just put it all out there now because the next day Marshall Pruitt saw what I had put and then decided to kind of run with it a little bit further. There will be a 34th entry for the Indianapolis 500. It'll be R.C. Enerson. It will be nothing to do with Top Gun. So in the past, when RC has ran the road course race, tried to qualify for Indy, and I believe he ran Gateway at the end of the year in 2021, they have bought whatever assets that Top Gun owned, the Enerson family now owns. That car will be fielded by Able Motorsports. who fields 3 Indy NXT teams with the son, Jacob Abel, who had a podium run at the St. Pete season opener. We'll get into more Indy NXT talk coming up here in a minute. Dr. Jack Miller's kid, Jack Miller, is in one of those rides as well. And Colin Kaminsky, who has a lot of talent, who is somebody who could definitely move up to IndyCar over the next couple of years. They will field the car, which means they'll provide the crew. They're going to bring in a couple very experienced engineers, and it is going to be a Enerson Abel entry together. So 34, that'll be the 34th entry. Now, I put this out there on Facebook. I get where you're coming from. We like to keep tradition at the Indianapolis 500 and 33 drivers start the race. That was brought up because they measured the track back in the day. I think off the top of my head, I want to say it was 1928, but I could be wrong on that. My devil's advocate to you would be if you look at these cars and these drivers that have went away that didn't qualify for the 500. Sam Schmidt Motorsports had to merge with Arrow, that is now McLaren. Clausen Marshall Motorsports, which had a collaboration with AJ Foyt and Pippa Mann. That team, driven to save lives, as sponsored Pippa, have not came back to the Indianapolis 500. Carlin Racing, after missing it with Pato Award and Max Chilton, haven't came back, have sold off their assets. Really, if you think about RC Anderson missing the race a few years ago, now coming back separate from Top Gun, we may not hear from Top Gun in the IndyCar level ever again. So, do you send the 34th car away because of tradition and that sponsor maybe goes away, that driver never comes back? I don't know. Here's what I'm going to say. And Catherine Legg is the 33rd entry, let's say, with Ray Hall, a 4th car. Ray Hall struggled last year. 2 cars on the back row. We never really heard from Graham Rahal, if you remember. Harvey and Christian Lundgaard as a rookie started on the back row. Harvey's been okay at Indy in the past, but he wasn't there last year at all. Lundgaard, we kind of learned at Texas, he can turn a 28th place car into an 18th place car, which isn't anything to write home about, but it's still an improvement from where you started. Catherine Legg has speed. She's been fast here. If you remember that 2013 race when she was with I believe it was Schmidt Peterson Motorsports at the time as a teammate to Simon Pagenaud. She was quick. She has the speed. But will Rahal as a team have some speed? And we'll really have an answer. Well, we won't have an answer for it, but we'll really have a good look at what that'll look like when they test on the oval for the Indianapolis 500 coming up next week. I do expect the entry list to be out for the Indy 500 as late as early next week. And we should see 34 cars on that with RC Enerson and a partnership with Able Motorsports being on that as well. So that's your Indy 500 update. I don't see us going past 34 as far as the entry list goes. But that's where the 34th entry will come from. It is a Chevy. And then the goal for Able is to have that experience, gain that knowledge, and then run the Indianapolis 500 in the future, move their team up, whether it's with Jacob or with another driver. That brings some money. So on the topic of Indy Next, they had a test. It's like their second off season, right? They had the off season. They run at St. Pete. Now they don't race until Birmingham coming up next week. Went out there. It was a cold test, which is, I was talking to Jacob Abel about it. It's like, well, that first or second week of May, we've seen the road course race. Remember last year it rained. The road course race in May, you're either cold as hell and you're out there bundled up, or it's warm and it's sunny. So you just never know the weather in Indy on any given day, especially in early May. Test went pretty good. Guys like Nolan Siegel were up there. Christian Rasmussen, talked to him for a little bit. In the baseball team that HMD Motorsports is putting out there. Jamie Chadwick was out there. She did not have the best start to her season down in St. Pete. Colin Frost, really good driver out there as well. So really looking forward to that. They've added the second road course race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway to the Indy Next schedule, if you saw that. But that's where I ran into the guys at Able Motorsports, kind of got that information. But yeah, look, I've always said with this channel, we're going to support Indy Next. We're going to support the Road to Indy ladder, which we'll talk about here in a minute as well. Great racing going on, and they race again coming up next week down in Birmingham. That'll be round number 2. And then here for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. As we know, Roger only wants one race on the oval. That's the Indianapolis 500. Although we might see the Brickyard come back here in the next several years. But as of right now, only one race on the IMS Oval. That's the Indianapolis 500. Please take Indy next to Indianapolis Raceway Park. That would be awesome. But we're gonna add another oval on a schedule for IndyCar in the near future. Probably going to be in the state of Wisconsin. That's later down the line. I'm just hinting at a few things here as we move forward. Some experiences that I had this week. This was fun. Was out at Lucas Oil Raceway, or Lucas Oil Raceway Park, as you know it as IRP. Friday night carb night. So if you want the perfect carb day, you go to carb day, pit stop competition, and you make your way about 5 miles west to IRP. You'll get some Silver Crown action. USAC midgets will be running out there. And then Mazda, or I don't know if it's Mazda anymore, but Road to Indy with the Pro 2000 and the USF 2000 cars. Got to help with the test out at Lucas Oil Raceway Park this week. It's great racing. The racing action is going to be awesome, and I'm a firm believer anytime you can support IRP, you should do that. So I helped Jay Howard, driver development, with some spotting. I'll be spotting those 2 races on Friday night. I don't know the drivers yet. But these are guys that are going to be in Indy next in the next several years. You look at a guy who's running now, Christian Rasmussen for HMD. He was at Andretti last year, won 2 races. He could be an IndyCar, and 2 years ago I was working with him at Jay Howard. So these are the guys. These are the future. This is where Rinus VeeKay came from, Colton Herta. A lot of these drivers that you were talking about today. Pato O'Ward was a lights driver and a lights winner, or now Indy Next lights at the time. But it was cool. It was cool to see these kids adapt. I mean, they're 15 to 17 years to 21 years old. Loki Hughes out of Surfers Paradise, California. Al Morey is a guy who goes to Hamilton Southeastern High School. He's 17 years old. He told me he missed school the last 2 days to go out for this test. I said, shouldn't you be in algebra right now? He's like, well, actually, I should be in algebra too. So super cool to go out and support those guys. It'll be a fun race. So if you're looking for action-packed racing throughout that Memorial Day weekend outside of the Indianapolis 500, certainly coming up at IRP. They'll have the Hoosier 100. So if you remember, the Hoosier 100 used to be on the oval, the dirt oval at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. Now it's being moved for the first time over to Lucas Oil Raceway, and the Silver Crown cars always put a great show on when it comes to pavement racing, especially out at IRP, whether it's the 500 Sprint Car Tour or what'll be the Hoosier 100. Guys like Cody Swanson will be out there. Kyle O'Gara, who won the opener last week at Anderson Speedway. Those big Taylor Ferns, who is a great driver. She has a lot of talent. Those type of drivers will be out there next week at Lucas Oil Raceway Park. So if you can go out there and support that, please do. Had a great time doing that, and we'll have some fun at the race. Maybe we'll get another victory. Christian Rasmussen won that race for Jay Howard driver development a few years back, so looking to get back in the victory circle. Hopefully it's a driver that I'll be working with. So tested 4 in the USF 2000 and then 2 in the Pro 2000 series. Pro feeds into Indy Next coming up. All right, let's get the power rankings after the Texas Motor Speedway, heading into Long Beach. We do this every week. We did it last year. I know NBC Sports is doing it as well. You're going to be interested to see where their list looks like compared to ours. We do this every week. I've got Pato O'Ward number 1, leading the points, back-to-back runner-up finishes. Pretty obvious there. Marcus Ericsson, second in points, 8th at Texas, the win at St. Pete to start the season. Joseph Newgarden wins at Texas. I've got him 3rd after the win in Texas. Didn't really have the greatest of St. Pete's to start the season, but bounced back with the win at Texas. Joseph Newgarden just, we talk about how great Scott Dixon is. Joseph Newgarden is in that realm. I think he's the best driver on the circuit right now. He's got to get better at the Indianapolis 500. That's going to be his Achilles heel until he finishes. And, he had the 3rd place finish in 2016. But you have to win that race. Joseph is too good of a driver to not win the Indianapolis 500. So we'll see if that comes this year. Although Penske, since winning in 2019 with Simon Pagenaud at the 500, hasn't been as great as they should be. And that's another team, too, is Meyer Shank Racing. You go to your sponsor's backyard at Long Beach this weekend. Can Elio Castro-Neves and Simon Pagenaud start to make moves forward here after a disappointing 2022 season? Finishing up the power rankings, David Malukas 4th. We already talked about him. Alex Palou, my pick to click coming up this weekend at Long Beach, is 5th. Scott Dixon is 6th. That's the lowest he has been since we started the power rankings last year to start the season. Colin Eilot is 7th. 2 top 10 runs to start the season for Juncos Hollinger Racing. Can't wait to see the improvements that they make and how they'll be on the oval. Scott McLaughlin, 8th. Colton Herta, 9th. Augustine Canapino is 10th. And what an impressive start to his rookie campaign he has had so far. All right, and the last thing to get to here before we wrap up the IndyCar show here on Burnout Sports and burnoutsports.com. Again, thanks so much for subscribing and checking in with us. Big weekend obviously coming up at Long Beach. We do have a IndyCar prediction game coming up on the Fans Place app. This week's winner will get the Rick Mears t-shirt from his first Indianapolis 500 win. So thanks for the shop there in Broad Ripple as well. Speaking of social media, this was, we always talk about, what IndyCar fans can bitch about today. And that goes back to a meme that the late, great Eric Schwarzkopf always posted. We lost Eric about a week and a half ago. One of the best photographers in the IndyCar paddock. Just very sad news. And the racetrack just won't be the same without him in his smart aleck remarks. So thinking about his family as we head to Long Beach this weekend. But, we talk about momentum and we talk about, okay, well, why aren't they on a Netflix show, or why do we not have trading cards? And then obviously the fiasco that has been the IndyCar video game that still isn't here quite yet. But the social media presence for IndyCar has really stepped up. I know there's some changes last summer. There's a new girl in charge now that I met last week. And just the highlights and the onboard cameras and just keeping the momentum on social media going when there's 2 weeks between races, I think has been awesome. I think IndyCar is trending in the right direction. That Texas race was the Texas of old that we grew to love in the mid-2000s and early 2010s. And I just think that the series continues to grow. The numbers are getting there. We'll see how this 100 Days Out show goes on the CW. Vice is a great network that does really good documentaries, so I have big expectations for this. And hopefully, as the momentum continues to grow, but I thought the social media presence has really, really ramped up here to start the season for IndyCar. And just excited to see how that looks over the next couple of weeks and throughout the Indianapolis 500. A lot of drivers are getting on TikTok. We'd love to see behind-the-scenes stuff. Whether it's on your YouTube channel, we know Bus Bros is incredibly popular right now. A lot of other drivers doing the same thing, type of Q&A sessions, behind-the-scenes type of things. But I think the social media presence and just some of the analytics and the data and the posts that we've had for the first 2 rounds of the season, and then here throughout the off season throughout the off season, yes, and then the last 2 weeks have certainly been great. So can't wait, looking forward to it, and kudos, shout out to everybody in IndyCar that is continuing to move this thing forward. Can't wait to see what happens in the month of May. I got a couple things that I can't wait to let you in on, one involving Connor Daly. But again, don't forget Burnout Bets coming up on Sunday as we get ready for Long Beach. It's a 3 o'clock Eastern green flag start. The Indy Boys have you covered as well. Don't forget to follow the Indy Boys on Twitter at Indy_bet as well. Mike doing great stuff. We've been pretty hot to start the season on that Burnout Bets Twitter stream. So be sure to check that out, as we'll do with Twitter Spaces coming up on Sunday. Don't forget to get into the Fans Place IndyCar contest as well for Long Beach. Thank you so much to Justin Cox for helping me with the show. The IndyCar show here on Burnout Sports, burnoutsports.com. Enjoy the upcoming race this Sunday at Long Beach.